So yesterday I finished by the statement of our result. So we were looking at a compact Riemann surface, compact, with representation from the fundamental group in the in SL2C. We look at so we have this the surface. So we get we look at the suspension of this representation. We get a manifold M rho, which is a fiber bundle with fibers. So if I have some point P below, I will call CP1P for telling that it's the fiber over that point. And so we have some manifold M rho, which is the suspension, and it's endowed with a foliation F rho, which leaves are transversal to the bundle, and such that if you follow some path on the surface S, and you lift it on your leaf, so when you go back, you arrive to rho. So if you start at some point X, you arrive to the point rho gamma minus 1, the rho of gamma minus 1 applied to the point X. Okay, so that is the suspension. So the leaves are cover of the hyperbolic surface S. So the leaves are naturally endowed with the hyperbolic metric, which in fact makes that the projection of the leaves are local isometries. So we consider on the leaves, so if I have a point X, I look at the measure mu of X R on R positive, which was normalized area measure on the disk of radius R centered at X on its leaves. So I take my disk on the leaf and I look at the hyperbolic area of this disk and I normalize for having a probability. So the theorem was that we had two possibilities, either the foliation admit an invariant measure, that is, there exists a probability theta on, donc probability on CP1, which is invariant by all rho gamma, that is rho gamma of theta is equal to theta for any gamma. So that is a possibility which is really non-generic. So for an open and dense subset of representation, we will be in the other case. So that is the generic case. There exists, and it is unique, just by definition, it will be evident that it is unique, a probability mu on M rho, such that for any sequence xn on any sequence Rn tending to infinity, the probability mu of xn Rn tends to mu. This may recall you the definition that I gave you of SRB measure. That is, an SRB measure for a usual dynamical system is some measure such that for a big set, in the sense of Lebesgue measure, if you look at the average, that is, you look at the average of the Dirac along the orbit, it stands to that measure. And that what we are telling here is that this measure does not just attract a big set, but is attracting the disk through any point. So it's some uniform convergence. It's a very strong form of converging to that measure. So now I will try to give an idea of the proof. In fact, when we start, we were aware about the difficulty to deal with disk because of the exponential growing of the area of the disks. And so instead of trying to understand where are going the leaves in all the directions at the same time, which is what is the meaning to look at disk, we started with trying to understand where are going the leaves. You just go in one direction. That is, take a leaf, take a direction, take the geodesic through following that direction, where is going the leaf? So we start with that. That is, we will consider, so I have my manifold M rho with the foliation F rho, and here I have my surface S. Here I can look at all the unitary tangent vectors on S, the T1 of S, and here I will consider the unit tangent vectors to the foliation. So the unit vectors on that manifold were tangent to that foliation. And certainly they project to a unit vector on my surface. So I have the unit tangent vector of the foliation which project on this surface. And I want to understand, so when on the unit tangent bundle, I have the geodesic flow. So I will denote by GT the geodesic flow. That is, if you take a point on a vector, you follow the geodesic at speed 1, and you look at the vector tangent to the, so that defines the flow. And you can do the same on the unit tangent bundle of the foliation. And so here I will have the foliated geodesic flow. So G rho T for the time. So the foliated geodesic flow. Okay. And I want to understand where are going that that geodesics. Okay, so the first thing is that as a projection is a local isometry, if I follow on some leaf, I take some vector and I follow the geodesic, and if, so this vector project on this one, then the geodesic project exactly on that geodesic, and so the flow projects on the foliated geodesic flow projects on the geodesic flow on the surface. Okay? I want to know where are going the geodesics, so more or less here I can follow the geodesic vertically or horizontally. I want to know where they are going, if they are going up, down, following the leaves. and also where they are going horizontally. But now I know that horizontally it's the same that the geodesic flow on the surface. So for that, I have to know a little bit of hyperbolic geometry. And the geodesic flow on a hyperbolic surface looks really like the Anosov map that I present you the first day. That is, there are directions which are contracting, directions which are expanding, and the other is the direction of the dynamic. And for this kind of flow, so first, here we have a natural measure, which is more or less the area measure of S multiplied by d theta, because when I have a unit vector field, a unique vector, okay, so I have the area measure on the surface, but I can also change the direction, which gives me a d theta. So this area times d theta is what is called Liouville measure. And Liouville measure is invariant by the geodesic flow. And as the geodesic flow is Anosov, op argument, in fact, I present you op argument in the case of the Anosov map, but op has done specially for that. So op proves that the Liouville is ergodic. So that means that if you take a generic vector here, almost every vector here, when you follow the geodesic through that vector, the geodesic is filling completely the surface. Not just that, but if you look at any small place, this geodesic will pass there many times, but in any directions. They will pass in any direction from in a completely equidistributed way. That is, if you want to know where are going the orbits, the geodesics there, they are going to Liouville. That where are going the geodesics. As up the geodesic are just projecting there, the horizontal evolution, we know what is the horizontal evolution, it tends to Liouville down. It goes everywhere with any direction. So it remains to understand what is the vertical motion. Okay?
But it goes for almost every initial condition.
Yeah?
The theorem you want to prove is that every initial condition.
No. No. The theorem is for oh, yes. But here I am not speaking on the geodesic flow.
Yes.
And then here is, I don't know. What?
For every point and almost every direction.
I will not need that. Okay? But anyway, it's true because you pass from one point to another point by the stable. But you know the answer. So the answer, you know the answer. It's a question for the other, but for the moment, it will not help the public that I answer you too much. Okay. Okay. So now I have to understand what is the vertical behavior of the geodesics. I told you, yes, the geodesic project on the geodesic on the base. But how, for example, I have this point, I have its fiber, I have this point, I have its fiber. I know that the geodesic below go from that point to that point, so this geodesic go to that fiber. But at what point of this fiber? Well, it's clear. It's the holonomy from that point to that point. Yes? So the geodesic in the foliated manifold is just taking the geodesic below and following the holonomy above that geodesic below. Okay, so geodesic here, in fact, follows the geodesic below, but following by holonomy of the foliation. And what is the holonomy of the foliation? The holonomy of the foliation, so the holonomies belongs to SL to C. That is, they are linear or projective maps from here to there. Okay, so now if you look at let me put 3 fibers, and I take a geodesic going from here to there. So from here to there, I will have an holonomy, and from here to there, I will have another holonomy, and the total one is a composition of the 2 holonomies. This one will be, so if I go, so here it was, I started to some point P, I go to the point G, T, so I have some vector U. I apply GT, I arrive there. I apply GS, I arrive there. So from here to there, I will have a map A, T of my point P. Here I have A, S, if it's GS, of my point GT of P, and the total one will be AS of GT of P times AT of P. That is, I'm looking at linear map, and I make the products. Donc I am doing product of matrices. And I want to see where is going my point. So let's start with the easier way. Let's just take one matrix. Not difficult. Let's start with, so I'm just making some parentheses. Take a matrix A in SL2C. And assume that A is hyperbolic, meaning that it has eigenvalues lambda on modulus larger than 1, so 1 over lambda less than 1. Okay. And I look at the action on CP1. So in C2, I have this picture that I put as in R2. I have one direction, maybe, sorry, no reason to be orthogonal. So I have 2 directions. One is contracting with lambda, with 1 over lambda. And the other is expanding with lambda. What do the other directions? If you take another straight line, and if you apply A, so take your vector, decompose it in the z basis, you apply A, this component is divided by lambda, the other is multiplied by lambda, so this line is changed that way. And if continue that way, and so on. So if you look at the action of CP1, what you get is that So let's call this direction the stable one. This one the unstable one. You have the corresponding point. So here is AU. Here is ES. And you have that the dynamic go to the stable one to the unstable one. You have a north-south dynamic whose repeller is the stable direction and the attractor in the unstable one. Okay? But here we are not dealing with just one matrix, we are multiplying several matrices. And multiplying several matrices according to some dynamic is what is called a linear cocycle. And linear cocycle, there is also a notion of some kind of notion which substitute the eigendirections on the eigenvalue for one matrix. But for that, you need more than just a dynamics and matrices associated to the point of your set, and that you multiply when you iterate your dynamics, that is your linear cocycle. You need something more. You need an ergodic measure. If you have a dynamics, so if you have a linear cocycle, like here, so you have a linear cocycle. So let's repeat how is so I have that G rho T is of the form. If I look at of some point in the unit tangent bundle and some point in the fiber, it will be to GT of P and some matrix apply A, T, P of X with the relation that A, S, G T of P, okay, times A T P is A T plus S P. Okay. So that is a linear cocycle. On what?
Don't you need the triviality of the bundle to write this?
If you really care that, yes? No, you don't do. That is, you can. Yeah, I assume in a. So that's not for everybody. Forbidden for menor, prohibido a los menores de 18 años. In the measurable meaning, it's trivial. And that theorem is for measurable cocycle. Then, there is when you have some cocycle like that, and if you take now some ergodic measure, so you have so that is a linear cocycle. And if you have now an ergodic measure for the dynamic below, there is some kind of Birkhoff theorem for this kind of products. You know, Birkhoff theorem is for average of function. Average of function is making sum and making average of the sum of function. And here we are not in the additive case, but multiplicative case, but that is not what is our interest. We want to know if the things are growing or decreasing, because we want to know what is growing like that. Here we have a contraction and so on. As you know, when you want to transform something which is multiplying by something which is additive, you make a logarithm. So But the fact is, if you look at the norm of two matrices, you look at the norm of the product, is not equal to the norm, the product of the norm, but it's just less one. So you have a subadditive property. You are not summing function, you are making something which is subadditive, and there is some subadditive ergodic theorem due to Oceledet. And Oceledet tell you that when you have an ergodic measure on a linear cocycle, then you have the same notion as eigenspace and eigenvalues, but there will be just measurables, and there will be just defined almost everywhere for your ergodic measure, but the eigenvalue will be constant almost everywhere. So what you get is, so I don't want to make the Oceledet theorem, I want to finish the proof today. So I will just, I just want to give the flavor of the ingredient that I am using. We will assume, as I tell you, Oceledet give me the equivalent of the eigenspace on eigenvalues. So I will assume that I am in that case that my cocycle is hyperbolic. Assume that, and that will be so Liouville, the measure, also the cocycle is hyperbolic for Liouville. That means that so by Oceledet, for Liouville, almost every point P in T1 of S, I will have a stable space of P. I will have an unstable space of P. The sum, they are in the direct sum. Okay? And the vectors, if you look at my matrices applying to the unstable direction, what I will see is that the vector, so vectors, so I need some invariance. I need that the unstable at the point G T of P will just be the image of the unstable of P, and the same for the stable one. So these directions are invariant by my cocycle. And furthermore, if you take the vectors in the unstable bundle have their norm to increase exponentially by a factor lambda, by lambda larger than 1.
That's in the unstable.
Unstable. And in the stable, they decrease by 1 over lambda. Yeah. So that is not at each time, it's some asymptotic is that it's true asymptotically. That is, if you take a vector and if you take its norm, you iterate a long time, and now you take the logarithm of the norms, then and you divide by the time, you will get, I get log lambda. Okay. So what, let me go back to the picture. What tell me Ocelledets is that for almost assuming hyperbolicity, so assuming something, Ocelledets tell me that for at almost every point on my surface of my T1 of S, at almost every point vectors is associated two directions, that is 2 points in the projective space, which are ES of P and EU of P. If I follow the geodesic, so I get the point here, GT of P, so I have the corresponding fiber, and if you follow up the geodesic, you will get here U of GT of P, and ES of GT of P. Okay, that is the invariance. And now, if you look at not the projective spaces, but C2, so that will be a line, and the vector in that line are contracted, and the vector in that line are expanded. So what are doing the other points? The answer is there. All the other directions go to the largest expansion. So in that fiber, if I want to, so if you want, here is the leader. I don't know where he is going that point, but all the others are following him. But there are always insurgentes, gente que no quiere desobedecer. Yeah, there are always people who don't want to follow the leader, and here there is just one. There is one resisting point, which is the other one. This one tells, no, este no me gusta, this I don't want to follow, so this one remain far away from that one, but all the others go close to this one. Okay. I have to say that here, I forget to say that log lambda here is called a Lyapunov exponent. The rate of exponential expansion of the vectors in the unstable direction is a positive Lyapunov exponent, and in the stable direction is a negative Lyapunov exponent. So, okay. And that are the Lyapunov directions. And these Lyapunov directions vary in a measurable way with P. So now I want to get to know where are going the points. As I told you, in each fiber, in almost each fiber, I have a leader. So what we will do, and we know that horizontally, my geodesics are following Liouville. And I know vertically who they are following. So if now I look at, well, here I have the section which is EU. If I look at EU of Liouville, I am taking the image of an ergodic measure by a measurable map. I get an ergodic measure, and everybody is following the point of this measure. So that is an ergodic measure, but is also an SRB measure, because its basin of mu restricted to the generic point for Liouville are just the all. Well, I will not write because it's not completely correct. So if I look at the generic point on the unit tangent bundle of the bases, I look at their fiber, the unique points which are not in the basin are the image by the other measurable section, S of P. So except these few points, that is one in one of the fiber, all the other are going to that measure. So now I have a description that is that measure describe the behavior of almost every geodesic in my tangent bundle of so that is a statement which is a theorem. Okay. Okay. So that is the way we get an. So let me call this measure mu plus. So I have now an ergodic measure which is attracting almost all the geodesics of the for the foliated geodesic flow. Oh, yes, okay. But there was some hypothesis. The hypothesis was assume Liouville is hyperbolic, but that is not for free. So let me, this comes from Furstenberg theorem. Furstenberg has a very beautiful result on random product of matrices. If you look at, so you have in GLN, RC, in fact, I think it's true in any Lie group. Okay, but for us is GL2C, SL2C. So look at SL2C and you want to make product, random products. For that, you put a probability on SL2C. So assume as you have, so I will just write here, Furstenberg. You take a probability, I don't know if I put some name on the probability. Nu proba on SL2C. And now you have one condition. Your condition is that your probability don't give too much weight at infinity because you make random products or you don't want that too often you have some matrix which is so huge that all what's happened before has no importance. So you want, and that is done assuming that the integral of the logarithm of the norm of the matrix A, and the logarithm of the norm, I think that in SL is the same for the inverse, but I will put for safety, -1, d nu is bounded. So that is some condition as ensuring that you don't give too much weight to the too big matrices. And the conclusion is that for almost every random product of these matrices following nu, the growth of your matrix of the product is exponential, and with oscillated, this implies that in fact you have a well-defined Lyapunov exponent for this random product of matrices. And this exponent is not 0 because the growth is exponential. So Furstenberg tell us that, oh, I have some hypotheses, some crucial, I forget some crucial hypotheses, and the crucial hypothesis is assume there is no probability theta on CP1 invariant by every matrices on the support of your probability. As you know, having a common probability is very exceptional, so it looks like a very simple hypothesis, but certainly you can make the link between that hypothesis and our hypothesis. It's precisely the same. We assume that the matrices we are making the products do not admit a common invariant, the matrices with probability on CP1, and we have no invariant probability on CP1 invariant by all these matrices, and for us is we have no probability invariant by all our holonomies. And so there is a theorem that we have with theorem with Javier and Marcelo Viana. We generalized Furstenberg theorem exactly for this kind of linear cocycles. Okay, so so I will not explain at all the precise theorem. I'm just telling that as in Furstenberg, the random product of matrices give you Lyapunov exponents, assuming you have no invariant probability. Here, our hypothesis that the holonomy don't leave any invariant probability ensures that you have that Liouville is hyperbolic for that cocycle. So we have these two different Lyapunov exponents, and we get our SRB measure mu plus. Okay. So that is how we get, we describe the behavior of the geodesics. Okay. But we are known that we know what are doing the disks. So we want to go in all the directions, and we just am able to say what's happened if you go in one direction. And so I stupidly thinking that if you know where you are going in that direction and in that direction, in almost all directions, you know where you are going if you go in any direction. But that's not true at all, because the measure on a disk don't look at all like the dt on some radius multiplied by d theta. That will be a cylindrical measure, which is very far to be the hyperbolic area. The hyperbolic area of a disk is concentrated on close to on a small annulus close to the frontier. So a priori to think that for understanding the disk, you have to understand all the straight lines, that was completely stupid. Just that. So it was a miracle that it works. So indeed, thinking well, so let me go back. If you look at one leaf and you look at one point on the disks, like that, for us, for the moment, we can say what's happened in many directions like that. But we want to know what's happened for the whole disks, and for that we using the area of the disk, and all the mass is concentrated in a small neighborhood of the frontier. So it would be much more useful to understand what's happened on a circle. So let's now switch from geodesic straight lines to the circles. Where are going the circles? So you take the one point and you take the big circles bonding the large disk around this point. So now there is some hyperbolic geometry, but let's say that that is the Poincaré disk. And you look at circle of larger and larger radius. Certainly they look all the same up to a global isometry. So let me consider points like that, but I will just take several lift of this point going to some point at infinity. And so if you take a big circle, what you obtain is what is called the orocycle. So if you look at an orocycle, an orocycle is the limit of what you get if you take the following thing. You take a point, you take a circle, the disk tangent to this orocycle at one point, and now you make the point going to the end of the geodesic, and you get a new, and so on. It don't look to be very centered, but it's because it's the hyperbolic matrix. So you take that point, and the big circle will be like that. And in fact, if you look at how the circles, so these circles tends to the orocycle, and not just in a C1 way, but in a smooth way. That is, if you look at now, so if you endorse this circle by the radius vector field, and the same for the orocycle, and you look now that in the unit tangent bundle, you get that the very large circles are almost orocycles. Okay, so we made a mistake when we studied the geodesic flow. It was not that flow it was useful. What was useful was the orocycle flow. So what is the orocycle flow? The orocycle flow is that at each point on vector you have this geodesic, you have the geodesic going there, you have an orocycle corresponding, take all the orthogonal vectors, that is point in the unit tangent vectors, and now follow your orocycle at the constant speed equal to 1, and that gives you the orocycle flow. So you have an orocycle flow on the hyperbolic disk. And the hyperbolic disk is a universal cover of my surface. So here I have also in the unit tangent, I have an orocycle flow. And I can lift this orocycle flow on the leaves. So I have also a foliated orocycle flow. And in fact, if I want to understand the behavior of the big disks, I have to understand this foliated orocycle flow. Okay. So once more, so come back to the initial point. I have, well, certainly the orocycle flow will be just, as it's a lift of the orocycle flow on the basis to the leaves, is just multiplying it's just a linear cocycle over the orocycle flow of the base. Okay. So once more, if I look at an orocycle on a leaf, I want to understand its horizontal behavior and its vertical behavior. Let's start with the horizontal behavior. For that, there is a very nice theorem, once more, by Furstenberg, if I'm not wrong, but I'm almost sure it is. Theorem of Furstenberg. So I told you in the first class, in the first hour of this course, that when you have a dynamical system, you have plenty of invariant measure. That's not always true. If you have an irrational rotation, maybe you know that there is a unique, Lebesgue is a unique invariant measure. And that this property to have a unique invariant measure is called to be uniquely ergodic. And Furstenberg proves that the horocycle flow of S is uniquely ergodic. So now, Etienne, I can answer to your question, initial question. You were, t'étais inquiet, you were, I don't know what, about the fact that I was not dealing with all the initial conditions, but almost all. But now there is a way to deal with all, because you are uniquely ergodic. Uniquely ergodic means for everybody, and that will be the important thing here. You were very anxious. I saw you were not able to remain quiet because you were so anxious. Okay. So our theorem. I have not been precise enough, and for that also my statement was not so precise here. When I have some point on some vector, I have two associated horocycle, which is the one that I draw, but also the other one, which is, well, it's not very beautiful like that, but I don't know how to make more beautiful. Okay, the one. So this one will be the stable horocycle, and this one will be the unstable horocycle. Okay. And so both are uniquely ergodic. So flows HS and HU are uniquely ergodic. So now on this manifold, I have the foliated geodesic flow, but I have also the foliated stable horocyclic flow, and I have the foliated unstable horocyclic flow. Here I have the G, HS, and HU. And in fact, our theorem may be more interesting than our theorem. Well, I think that the first one was nice, but this one is also very nice, I think, is that HS rho and HSU are uniquely ergodic. And the unique invariant measure are, I define mu plus for, that is for the unstable, mu plus, and I did not define mu minus, but it's easy to know what it is. So if you look at, so I will put here mu minus is equal to US of Liouville. So our theorem is that there exists a unique invariant measure for the foliated horocycle flow. So when you take a large disk, its mass is more or less the mass of the big cycles. These big cycles go to horocycles. There is a unique measure invariant to the horocycles, so this big disk has to go to this measure. So let's try in the 6 minutes I have now to prove that these two flows are uniquely ergodic. First of all, so here I tell there are uniquely ergodic and there are the unique measure is this one. So at least I have to prove that this measure is invariant for the horocycles. For that, I have to remember you, I told you in the middle that the geodesic flow was an OSOF, so that you have some direction which has contracted or some other which has expanded. And so let me show you that. So you certainly have seen this picture. If you take on the same horocycle, the geodesic are approaching each other exponentially. So that are the geodesic, telling that this horocycle is precisely the stable manifold of that vector. If you take the vector, the unique vector orthogonal to that horocycle, the geodesics through that point on that point are tending to approaching each time each other. Okay? So that is on the same for the unstable one, but if you take for the negativity rates, if you take the vectors, the unique vectors, but you follow negatively, so you have an exponential growth. Okay? And so let me now explain you why HS is in, why the mu minus, that is, okay, let me, I have to put some lemma. The lemma is that the section ES is invariant under HS rho. So I have my surface, and I take 2 points on vectors, which are in the same stable horocycle. And I look at the corresponding fibers to these 2 points. And here I have ES, so I have PQ. I have ES of P, ES of Q. What are the vectors? So I don't know where is ES of Q, and I pretend that it will be following the horocycle, the foliated horocycle, and you will get ES of Q. That is what I want to prove. So I have to come back to the definition of ES of P. So you look at, I have here a projective fiber, but it's a projective of a vectorial C2. And in this vectorial space, I have a line, which is ES, and the vector are exponentially contracted. And I have another C2, which is approaching this one exponentially because I take Q in the same horocycle. So when I follow the geodesic, the 2 points are approaching exponentially. So the vector space are approaching exponentially. And now I take precisely the line which is the image by the holonomy, so by the foliated horocycle flow. So this line is approaching exponentially from this one. Okay, what do the vectors inside? The first are going exponentially to 0, the other also. So that's telling that the image, it's precisely the stable manifold of Q. Just because that the vector field are approaching one to the other, and that you have an holonomy from one to the other, which is preserved. So when one vector is going to 0, and you are taking the holonomy by something very, very short, so the other has to go to 0 too. Okay, so that tells that the sections are invariant by the foliated horocycle flow. So as this section is invariant by the horocycle flow, I have that ES of Liouville So Liouville, I forgot to say that it's for Liouville. Liouville is invariant by the horocycle flow below. I take the image by a section which is invariant by the horocycle flow. I get something which is invariant for the horocycle flow, proving that mu minus is invariant for the stable horocycle flow. And in the same way, but reversing the time, I get that mu plus is invariant by the horocycle flow. Okay. So now, as I have 30 seconds for ending, I will just not writing nothing, and I will do by just speaking. So now we have one measure which is invariant for the horocycle flow, and I want to show that it is the unique one. So assume you have another one, another measure which is invariant for the horocycle flow. This measure, on what it projects below. It projects on something invariant to the horocycle flow, but you have no choice. There is a unique one. It's Liouville. So your measure cannot be some small measure there. It's a measure which projects below to Liouville. Okay? Now your measure is not mu plus. So you can, if you have some intersection, if there are no strangers, I don't know, comment se dit? Arenas? If they are not disjoint, you remove the intersection of them. That's possible. You need some decomposition theorem for that, but you can do that. You can remove the intersection, and so you get some disjoint measure. Okay, so now you have an invariant measure which is disjoint from mu plus, on which project to Liouville. As it projects to Liouville, and for almost every point in Liouville, you have this, the two sections ES and EU. You have for almost every point, okay, your measure intersect these sets in a full measure. And now you look at where is the support, where are the density, the mass of your measure. Certainly, it's not on EU. If your measure gave weight on EU, it will not be disjoint for mu plus. So as your measure is disjoint from mu plus, it gives the total mass of the complement of EU. Okay, so you have your measure, and now you push your measure by the geodesic flow. The geodesic flow sends the horocyclic flow in a multiple of itself. So it sends an invariant measure for the horocyclic flow and an invariant measure of the horocyclic flow. Okay, so each time you push by the geodesic flow, you just have invariant measure for your horocyclic flow. Okay? You make the average. It remains average for the time along the geodesic flow. You know that you make average, you always go to something invariant for the geodesic flow. So you get something, you make average of things which are invariant by the unstable horocyclic flow, so the average is also, but now it's invariant also for the geodesic flow. Okay, but all the mass was out of EU, and you are pushing by the geodesic flow on all the mass of what is not EU. When you are pushing negatively, sorry, I forget to say that I was pushing negatively, is going to mu minus. So the limit, I have no choice. I'm going to mu minus. Telling that mu minus, which was invariant by the stable horocyclic flow, is now invariant by the geodesic flow it was, but also by the unstable horocyclic flow. So I have now a measure which is invariant by the stable horocyclic flow, the unstable horocyclic flow on the geodesic, and that is not difficult to see that the unique measure on the surface which is invariant by these three flows, is Liouville. What that tells is that, so I repeat, I take some measure which was invariant for the unstable orocyclic flow and which was disjoint from mu plus. I push it by the negative geodesic flow, I make average, and I have to go to mu minus, but I get, in fact, a measure which was Liouville in the leaves. And yesterday, I explained you that if you have a foliation and you have a measure which on each leaf induce the area measure, which is here Liouville, your measure is a product of Liouville by a transverse measure by holonomy. So what you get is your foliation as a transverse invariant measure by holonomy, which was precisely the hypothesis that I forbid. So that was the contradiction, telling that the foliated orocyclic flow was uniquely ergodic. Okay, so I passed my time. I know that it was no more understandable for the student, and I have to apologize on that, but I think the idea of the course was not to make the precise proof of that theorem, which now is a little bit old. We want to go further. I just wanted to show you a little bit the techniques. So I insist in making something precise for the ergodic theory that I think that here there is not so many people knowing ergodic theory. But okay, here it was for showing you all the ingredients in the proof. And so I apologize, it was too fast, certainly.